This is Art Talk with April, an artist podcast where we meet artists from all around the southeastern states. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking with artist Dan Tipton. This is part one. Hope you enjoy. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art Talk with April. Today we have Dan Tipton, who has been on the podcast before. So you should go check out that episode and then watch this one too, because a lot has changed with Dan. He's a fine artist and he is doing so much. I mean, gosh, where do we even begin? So we just talked about how you're doing more painting than you were before.
Yeah.
So let's kind of pick up from there. Like you were doing a lot more drawing kinds of things. What made you get started in going down the painting path?
What did make me get started? I always enjoyed looking at paintings. I've always enjoyed looking at paintings, and I've always enjoyed imagining what, I could make of a painting. And I wanted I wanted to work larger, and now I'm working on some of a larger, I have paintings that are life size or even more than life size. The one behind me is more than life size. And so had wanted to work larger, and that's kind of difficult to do in a drawing for one. And you don't really typically get, color in a drawing. And I wanted to deal with color. I wanted some things to be, I wanted to explore what I could do with color. I think that's what got me into painting.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And were you doing watercolors before as well, or experimenting with that?
I went through a little bit of a phase, maybe for about 6, 7 months, where I was really, I would say, sketching in watercolor. They weren't that big. They were maybe, 9 by 12 or something like that or whatever. And I experimented with different, brands of watercolors, different brushes, different papers. I really found out that the paper really, really matters in watercolor. And I would use it. I still use it every once in a while now as sort of a sketching medium. And that's kind of what I found out about watercolors. Even though it's a wet medium, I really consider it a drawing medium, because it's, you're working with these kind of small brushes and almost like a pen or a pencil, and I don't know, for me, I found it as kind of almost like a go between, like a step between drawing and painting, really.
Yeah.
Because you can really, I consider it a drawing medium, even though it's
That's
it's
interesting.
actually paint. So
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. And when you look back at masters, they're usually doing the sketching or watercolor, and it seems more like a sketch or a draft before an actual painting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I don't really do this much anymore, but I have made like watercolor, what I would call drawings or
Yeah.
drafts or whatever, in preparation for an oil painting, which seems kind of weird. But yeah, so I went from watercolor to gouache, which is, a little bit closer
more.
yeah, a little bit more of a solid paint, really. And then really I head first into oil paint. So
Okay. That was the next thing I was going to ask. Did you, play with acrylic and then get into oils, or what? Like, did you take a class, or did something lead up to that?
well, so for the past 2.5 years, I have been in school for my Master's of Fine Arts part time, and so part of that venturing was schoolwork. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Where are you getting a master's from?
It's called the Academy of Art University. It's one of the largest art academies in America, really. It's in San Francisco. And of course, I go online. I'm a part-time student there. And so I'll be graduating this December with my Master's of Fine Arts. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So I think what's curious to me about that, Dan, is like, what changed in you to make you take that leap to do fine art and get a master's? Were you looking to go into
Uh,
teaching, or what was the ultimate goal that you were thinking about?
well, teaching, I had taught drawing classes before, and I've taught drawing classes privately before I started going to school. And I found that I really do enjoy teaching. Almost as much as I enjoy doing the thing myself. And I don't know, I have taught kids and they're fun. I don't know that I'm necessarily the one to teach kids on a constant basis, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. And it, it's just not where I fit. I don't think I fit more with somebody who's maybe more on the serious end, really trying to learn skills. And, that's not, I have had children like that, but that's not necessarily children.
Rare.
So my goal is to teach on the university level, and you don't really know of any universities that are hiring people with just bachelor's degrees,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So that made me seek out my master's degree, and it's something I've been thinking about for like 10 years or so. I wish I had started it 10 years ago, but
Yeah.
yeah, I've been thinking about it for a while. And also, I wanted to really test and my skills and learn. I really wanted to, I guess you could say, level up my skills as
Yeah.
a painter and draftsman.
I definitely see it. I've, like over the years, every once in a while, I'd see some posts that you were making and you're, working on your all kinds of things. And you would talk about how you were working on trying to figure something out. And I really liked that. I thought that was interesting. And then you can tell definitely that you've grown as far as, I don't know, gosh, was it like 4 or 5 years ago or something? But
Yeah.
so you're primarily doing oils now, but are you and what kind of subject matter are you doing now?
Yeah, yes. To answer your question, I pretty much only paint in oils. I mean, I still have watercolors, and I would still right now my sketchbooks. I love to use. I still love ink. I
Mm,
used to do all of my final work in ink and whatever. So
yeah.
in my sketchbooks, I still love using ink. So that's what I draw in mostly. But to answer your question, I would use watercolor in a sketchbook maybe, but not
Mhm.
necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily do final pieces in watercolors. So I pretty much only
Yes.
paint in oil, and I paint pretty much every day. As far as subject matter, I would consider myself a figurative narrative person, somebody who's looking for some type of specific narrative and to be able to tell that narrative in the human figure. I do like doing animals here and there. I do also plein air paint a lot.
Oh,
I don't really share that a whole lot. I don't really think I'm that good at it. I think it's just fun. So I just do that for fun. And so primarily, I guess you could say I'm a figurative narrative artist.
yeah, that's interesting. I feel like you were kind of doing that before too, though, and but it was the pen and ink and
Yeah,
drawing.
my subject matter hasn't necessarily changed. I'm still obsessed with the human figure. I work with a handful of models, some here in Alabama. I have one up in Tennessee I work with. And I'm always looking for people to model for me. And recently I've taken up sculpture,
Yeah,
and I took up sculpture with the purpose of really being able to make my own models. So, and
that's
to
fun.
better understand the human figure. So, I took up sculpture at first basically to make maquettes, if you've ever heard that word. So, to make my own models for paintings and whatever. But, I'm working on a torso right now. I'm sorry, I'm looking over at it. It's about 18 inches high, and I recently went to just a few weeks ago. I went to the Booth Museum in Cartersville, Georgia, and
Oh,
they have some really beautiful paintings there. But they also have a ton of sculpture, a lot of Native American sculpture. And I was really inspired by all of it. I'm like, I could be a sculptor too. I mean, it may end up being more than just, maquettes. So,
yeah, yeah. So interesting. It feels like you're going down this path of like being a master artist, which you don't see very often anymore, in my opinion. But I don't know. What about you? What do you think? Do many people do that? Like go in that direction of
I
follow your
mean,
steps?
I mean I mean I see it because
Yeah.
those are the people I'm looking at. So,
Yeah.
I have 10 or 15 people I look at. I don't know them personally. I wish I did, but you know, 10 or 15 people that are current in today's world.
Yeah.
And you know that, yeah, that's what they're doing. They're selling paintings, they're making sculptures, they're, you know, selling, you know, whatever, teaching workshops, and that's how they make the living. And so, you know, so for me, yeah, that's what I see. That's what I look at. That's what I'm
That's what your
influenced by.
algorithm
So,
is.
yeah, that's what my algorithm is. I mean, it's funny that you bring that up because, you know, I see those people, you know, and I'm like, man, I wish I didn't see that today because it makes me feel like I'm not
Oh
doing enough. I'm not there
no.
yet. Dang it, you know. So let me get to, you know, sometimes I see too much of it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I agree. I do that too. I'm like, I gotta take a break because I'm starting to get agitated about this.
yeah, you know, but you know, I don't know. It's just my pursuit, you know.
Mhm.
It, you know, it'll, you know, I've done a lot better with it this past year than I ever have, which is, you know, I still do, I fortunately or unfortunately still have a full-time job, day job, but it's become much more flexible than it used to be. And this past year, I pretty much matched my salary from it with my art sales. So, I mean, you know, maybe at some point, you know, maybe in the next few years, I can
Yeah.
step away and just do this. Yeah.
How are you going about doing that now? Are you mostly selling your oils? Are you taking commissions? How is that going?
It's really, I mean, I've done some commissions, some portrait commissions. That's not my
You really do that
it's
much?
gonna sound bad, but that's not my strength. You know, it's just not my
Yeah.
it's not it's you know, I don't mind doing some of them here and there or whatever, but like I can't, me personally, I don't like to work like that. You know, I don't like having somebody dictate what goes on the
Mhm.
paper or the canvas or whatever. Um
But you're still
and
figurative.
I know that
Yeah.
sounds, you know, stuck up or
No.
egotistical, but that's it. You know, that's just not me. That's just not how I work best. And so it's interesting how it's happened. I think I'm favored. I think I'm blessed, to be honest with you, because and to be honest with you, the more that I kind of buckle down and just try to get better at my craft, try to hone
Mhm.
in the vision that I want for certain paintings, you know. So all of my paintings mean something. All of my paintings have a narrative. All of them have a story. And so the more that I buckle down into that story for that, either the series or the particular painting that I'm working on, the more that I hone in on my craft. I don't know, I, you know, call it God or call it the universe or whatever. I mean, things just seemed, you know,
Yeah.
seemed to happen. And the more that I don't worry about it happening, if that makes sense. For instance, the largest sale that I made last year was almost half of my yearly salary at my regular job. And it just happened out of the blue. And I'm working on this series. It's called Connection. I've been working on it for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
That's the series that's going in my solo show at the end of this year. One of the models that I used for that series, she called me up one day and said that a friend of hers, she was showing those paintings to a friend of hers, and he wanted to buy all of them. And so
Wow.
he wanted to buy all of them that I had done thus far, which was only four at the time.
Yeah.
And they're big paintings. And I mean, and she doesn't. We might. I don't really talk to her unless I need her as a model, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
don't. It's not that we're not friendly. It's just, you know, like we don't really talk. And she calls me up out of the blue saying that he wants to buy these paintings and to give him a price. So I start talking to him and all that, whatever. Long story short, bought them and then signed an agreement to loan them back for the show that I'm
Oh,
doing.
okay.
And I'm leaving his house after selling all these paintings to him, and you know, with almost half my yearly salary in hand. And
That's amazing. Oh, how
yeah,
cool.
and you know, I said, you know, and he's a great guy. down to earth and all that, whatever, great
Yeah.
guy. And I'm leaving his house, and I say, let me know if I can do anything else for you. And he said, just let me know when you have the rest of the paintings for the series done, and I'll buy those. And he doesn't even know what those paintings are. I'm like,
Wow.
okay. So it's just that's why I say I feel like I'm just blessed and favored, and
Yeah.
like, like I've just hit this thing where, like I just if I'm not saying don't market yourself and don't do the business of it and all that and whatever. Take
Mhm.
care of that, but also, focus on what you're supposed to focus on. I'm supposed to be a painter. I'm supposed to be an artist, and so I'm focused on it. I'm focused
Mhm.
on creating the narratives that I want to tell, and then things seem to happen. I don't know, or that's the way it's happened for me. And doors open. When you put that out there and put out the narrative, and
Mhm.
and honestly, that's I think what he was really buying, because I told him the narrative behind each painting that he was buying, and he was, enamored with that. And so, like for those, the series is called Connection. It's all about how we as people go through life and connect with other people, or don't, and what is it that gets in the way, or how we connect with, or the things that we go through in life. And so, one of the paintings he bought is called Dissolved, and it has to do with a male's ego, and the male's ego taking him over, and he's cracking up and all that and whatever, and on fire and disgusted with himself. And he had lived through that. So he,
Oh.
he felt it, and he's kind of healed himself from that. So,
Mhm.
and so I think people want to, painting is a visual representation of a language. And so if people can see themselves in the painting, and they can be healed by it, that it can bring healing and whatever, or it can bring understanding. So, people buy the narrative. People want the narrative.
Interesting, but are you like, so in that case, it was kind of like a networking thing where you knew this model and she was the model and showed the paintings. But are you like, I don't know, posting on a website or online or what?
I do have a domain,
Yeah.
and I used to have a website up. I do need to redesign it and put it up, just so I can show, because I run into people all the time, and
Sure.
because I take my sketchbook everywhere I go, and people see me drawing all the time and all that and whatever, and ask me about it. And
Yeah.
so I definitely do need to redesign my website, and that way I can just say, well, go to Dan Tipton Art and look
Yeah.
around,
You need to do that before your art show.
Yeah.
You need to do that before your show at the
Yeah,
the
yeah,
gallery. Yeah.
my solo exhibit, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I need to redesign it, because my work has changed so much in the past couple of years, that I need, current stuff up on there. And so I do need to do that. And I post on social media all the time.
Mhm.
And I just tell people when things are for sale or not, or whatever. And I've sold things off of there. But really, honestly, the largest sales that I've made, and that I continue to make, is just through, networking of private collectors. And like I said, they just seem to, at least now, they seem to just, fall into where I'm at, and like I do think that you do need to be prepared, right? So you need to be. I think there's luck in the world,
Mhm.
or favor, or whatever you want to call it, but you need to be prepared to step through that opportunity of when luck shows up, right? And so me, I'm obsessed with this thing, so I'm always talking about it. I'm always thinking about it, or I'm doing it, right? For instance, another guy that just recently, he hasn't bought anything from me yet, but he's about to buy something from me. He lives in Texas. My wife and I were blessed enough to go on a cruise back in January, actually. And we met this guy at the art auction on the cruise, and I had become friends with like the staff of the art auction, of course, and I'd even like done a couple of sketches of a couple of them and all that, whatever, and I took a little painting kit with me, and I gave one of them a little painting that I did there and all that and whatever, and he was appreciative and all that and whatever. but and I wasn't trying to impress anybody. It's just who I am. It's who, like I carry my sketchbook everywhere. So
Yeah.
if there's going to be a little art gallery on the ship, of course I'm going to go look, even if I don't like the stuff. And then I'm going to talk to somebody about it and all that and whatever. And so, anyway, this guy that was in the art auction, I was giving the guy that worked the art auction after one of the auctions a little small painting because I told him that I had something for him and I gave it to him. And the guys that I met there, he's like, "Wow, you did that little painting?" I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah, I was like, yeah, but it's just a little sketch and whatever. And it was just a little study actually for this painting.
Mm.
Uh, and I was like, here, let me show you something, more that I've done and whatever. So I flipped to some more of my serious paintings on my phone and whatever. And he's ready to buy some right there. I'm like, well, and these are paintings I'm selling like for $8,000, $9,000. I mean, they're large paintings. And I'm like, well, you haven't even seen the actual painting. This is just on the phone. And he's just a fan of art.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, unfortunately, these are spoken for. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
And so he's like, well, let me give you my contact. And he said that, the next ones that you have available, let me know and I'll buy them. And so like that's another one that, like he's just, I was flipping through some of the paintings I had and telling him what the narratives are on them and all whatever. And I have a painting called Rebirth, and it's all about how we all have certain areas in us that are dead, that if
Mm-hmm.
we're willing and able to slowly heal those parts the right way, they can come back to life in a better way. And it's actually a woman that's laying down and she kind of has like flowers growing out of her back. I don't know if you saw that on my social media, but I was showing that one to him, and that's the one he wanted, and I was like, it's spoken for right now. Everything I have is spoken for. Sorry.
That's good. That's an
But
awesome.
like I said, he's fallen in love with the story, the narrative, and
Mhm.
then like the I'd like to think some of the skill of the painting too. So
That's really cool. I love that. That's awesome. I mean, good job.
yeah, so you asked about like how do I sell or whatever. Well, I just
Yeah.
I just
It's
I
connections
don't
like,
yeah I don't
you
shut
know.
up about art. I talk to
Everybody
everybody.
do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool though. That's really interesting. Because, we're always told to like, well, always, but we've kind of been given a narrative as a modern artist that we need to use social media and we need to have a website. We need to, do all the things and I don't know, email galleries and, propose shows or whatever it is. And it doesn't necessarily have to work that way. It's kind of interesting. Have you done that, like connected with galleries and people like that? Because you have mentioned that you are getting some representation now too.
Yeah, I've talked to some.
Mm.
There's one in Asheville, North Carolina. I've talked to. I've
Oh,
talked to
okay.
one in New York City, and they're kind of just I'm kind of just in the process of those things, and I'm not too concerned about it just yet, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
It's kind of on the
I'm
back
very
burner.
I'm very focused on kind of my school stuff right now and getting
Yeah.
this solo show completed, and so I'm not totally focused on those getting gallery representation, but I have talked to a few, and they like my work, and I think one of the things I had to learn was that if I get rejected, that's not necessarily a comment on me or my work. It may be just that my work doesn't fit in their particular gallery. Like they have to make a dollar too. So like
Yeah.
they have to be pretty sure that they can sell it to their current clientele and whatnot and whatever. So, if I get rejected from a gallery or a show or some kind of exhibition or something like that or whatever, it's not necessarily a comment on the quality of who I am
Mm.
or my work is. And I had to get past that because I used to think that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of artists go down that path.
Yeah. And so, and also too, like, I really don't know, I would say maybe my faith in God. I would say God. You know, some people may say other or whatever, but I truly have this feeling inside of me that like this is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
There has been opportunities and a way for me to do it in the past. Why wouldn't there be a way for me to do it in the future?
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the way, like, God knows that I need to feed my 6 kids. God knows I
Yeah.
need to feed my
Yeah.
animals and all that and whatever. And I really truly believe this is what I'm meant to do.
Hope you enjoyed this part of Dan Tipton's interview, and check back on June 23rd for part 2. Thank you for listening to Art Talk with April. New episodes are out Tuesday at 6 p.m.